Hello, I'm Brenda Osborne. I am a tapestry weaver. I studied for more than a decade with Archie Brennan and the Wednesday Group, and I helped him author the current book that's out about his life and his artwork. Of the many things I learned from him, I began to teach in various courses. And I have found that students struggle with the beginning and ending of weft threads, how they can secure them so that they don't end up pulling out to the front. And this is called hitching on and hitching off. And whether I teach an 8-week class or a 3-day workshop, I find students struggle more with this than any other technique I try to cover in those classes. So today I want to do some demonstrating on hitching off and hitching on this sample loom that I have here. It's set very coarsely at 4 inches per inch with pretty thick thread, and I'm hoping you'll be able to understand the technique. I have two situations here. I have a situation, if I wanted to end this yellow color, because I've woven the shape that I need, even though I have all this extra, I need to figure out how to end my weft when it's sticking out the front. You may think that you would just leave it in the back. But now you have two warp threads showing where this one would be uncovered. This one would be covered, which is what it would be uncovered. And it's this last warp thread that wants to be covered. But we can't leave this hanging out here, and we can't tuck it behind because it doesn't end up covering it in this row. And if you tried to cover it and the next one for the next row, you would get your over-unders out of whack. So here we are. This is how we left it. And we want to cover that last thread, but there's not a logical way to do it without making a hitch. It's a half hitch. I'm now behind it, which means I'm behind the one where I wanted to be behind, and I need to cover this last thread. And I will do a half hitch. Can you see that? I'll pull it through, I'll tension it down, and when I weave subsequent rows on top of it, this will get locked in place. At the other side of the warp, I need for this next to last warp thread to be covered and the last warp thread to be uncovered. And you might think you could just do that, but this would leave you something rather loose when you start weaving on top of it, and this isn't terribly secure. The same thing's going to happen. I'm going to go behind that warp thread. And that means I'm behind two warp threads. One of them I should be behind. The other one I need to cover. I need to cover this next to last one. So I'll bring my weft to the front, pull it up a little to make a space right here, and I'll put the bitter end of my weft through there, making a half hitch, and I'll pull down and tension. So let's talk about starting the next weft. Now that you've hitched off and you're ready to go on with the rest of your design, this one's covered, this one's uncovered, covered, uncovered, so on, which means this first warp thread now needs to be covered. We would be picking a row like this and inserting a weft, and this would be dangling out with no way to keep it secure. I'm going to snip this so it's a truly beginning warp and a weft, and not one I'm just bringing up. So basically what we want is something that looks like this. We've started weaving. We have our overs and unders correct for continuing across the row, but this one's just hanging out. I need you to see that better. Can you see this one's just hanging out? We'll secure it, once again, behind it. Pull it up a little so you have room to tuck it in with a half hitch. Pull down, tension, and you're off and running. I'm going to weave across this row. If you'll notice, just another tip, I never weave across an entire row and then beat. I do it in small bits so that I can control the tension and the amount of weft I'm putting in. Let's come back. This is a very short piece of weft I have, so I'm going to run out of it before I can finish the following row. So I will have to end it in the middle of the row. So here we are. I've got very little weft left, and I need to hitch off somewhere. But again, you always hitch off on a warp thread that needs to be covered. It's this one I'm choosing. You see, it wants to be covered. But if I just tuck that back in, it won't be terribly secure. So I'm going to go behind it. There I am. I'm behind two. And I will make a half hitch eventually on the warp thread that wanted to be covered. Now I want to keep going. I hitched off on this one. I hitched off on this thread in this new row that I'm weaving across in this direction. This is covered. This will be uncovered. This will be covered. So what you'll find is that whenever you hitch off in the middle of your row, you will hitch off on one that needs to be covered, and you will leave the next one alone. And if I just came up and covered the one I wanted, this would end up being a very baggy situation. It looks good now, but eventually this is not a secure situation. I haven't hitched on. Instead, let's think about this. This one's covered. This one wants to be uncovered. This one wants to be covered. So I've come up on the far side of it in the direction I'm going, and I want to wrap it and go behind the next one. Covered, uncovered, covered, uncovered, and I finish the row, and everything, all the highs and lows are where they should be, covereds and uncovereds, and I'm ready to move on. And when I weave across this purple hitch here, it will get locked in place. I hope that's been helpful. If you have questions, leave me a comment in the notes or in the whatever, write me back area, and I will try to make it clearer however I can. Thank you.